I literally just finished a previous video about the types of tools I use, and my little Copics that I drew on the paper with just bled through the paper like little bad boys, which they are, and have vandalised my paper. How dare they? Anyway, I'm going to leave that there as a little memory of them. In fact, I'm going to draw a little face out of them. He shall be toothless and he will remain with us forever. So for this video, guys, I'm going to actually show you how to draw hands. And there are many ways to draw hands, but I'm going to show you a way that I've recently developed. And hands are a pain in the butt, honestly. They just are so difficult to get the hang of. But once you do, it's all fun and games, and you can just keep going and keep drawing them. And keep practicing really with hands. That's the key. Let's get into it. So we're going to start off with this, which looks like a rectangle without a top to it. Okay, so we're going to start off with this. And now the second thing we're going to do is do this. It's basically just drawing a triangle, but with one end longer than the other. So there we go. We've got that in there and that in there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start defining this. Now guys, you probably know that hands aren't exactly straight. If you look at this hand, my hand here, it's webbed. Once I put it out like this, it's like you can describe it as webbed, right? So you've got to think the same even with this. Now we've started off with this rectangular shape, but actually a hand goes out like this, right? So you've got to do the same on this side again. Okay? So I want you to do another triangle, but less this time, less short on this side, and just like this. Okay, and that will be the top of our hand, and this will be where the fingers come in, guys, in case you ain't noticed yet. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is start building on this. I'm going to define that curve a little bit more. I'm going to add another one to it. And another one. And this time I'm going to leave almost a space. Okay? I'm going to leave a space and then go in from here. And the reason for it is, well, come on guys, even I'm sure you guys have noticed by now, as I've said earlier, the hand isn't always that rigid. You know, when we move it and we do different things with our hand, it doesn't look that rigid all the time at every single angle. So we need to take into account this type of dip in the hand, this little point here, where, you know, all the sort of fingers connect. There is actually a space there, but this little point connecting all the fingers here really needs to be taken into account here. So that's really what I'm doing when I'm leaving this sort of space. And then to put in the knuckles and where they'd sit. And then this point is quite an interesting shape. And it is very difficult to get this down on paper, really, but it's very easy to get it really wrong too. So I think the best way to work your way around it would be to actually look at your hand as you're drawing. And I know that's probably sounds like the most cliche thing ever, but I promise you, I'm not trying to be cliche here. I'm just trying to help you. Okay, let me help you. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to follow that hand there. So if you look at my hand here, and then I'm going to draw it again as I'm going along here and just show you what it looks like. As you can see, the thumb has its own little joints going on. So there's one joint here and one joint there, and obviously the same with your fingers. But if we look specifically at the thumb, there's one here, yep, which is this. So that's this one, and then there's one here, which is basically this. And we want to kind of, you know, keep that as realistic as we can as we go along. And I guess it really depends on how cartoony you want your characters to be looking too. And, you know, we're not going too crazily cartoony over here, but, you know, we are still keeping a sense of realism at the same time as we're going. So there we go. As you can see, I've just defined this little bit of the finger here. So this part here is this bit, and then as you can see, it's almost like 3 different parts. So it's this little bit here, and then this bit and this bit. So this part is this chunky bit here. This part is sort of this part here, and then you can almost curve that in there, and then, you know, sort of put the suggestion of a nail as well. If you want to be a little bit extra, you can do that, and you can go ahead and do that. And yeah, I'm going to just rub this out because we don't really need that little extra bit there. We don't need that bit there. We don't really need that there. So, okay, so there we go. And I'm also going to put in a little bit of nail here, just so that you guys get a sense of the angle that we're working on here with our hand, really. And, you know, sort of how it's going to look overall. Let me just rub out these lines now. We can get rid of these guidelines, but also, guys, remember, as you are getting rid of your guidelines and all these good little bits that help you to define your hand in the first place, remember that the hand, as I said before, webs out like this. So you got to think of it as a rectangle shape here, but then webbing out into almost a V. So, you know, that's kind of what we want to think of when we go up and start connecting the hand later on to what would essentially be an arm. Yes, now let me rub out these guidelines, which were the little rectangular bits earlier. I don't want to forget this part of our hand, because that is essentially this little bit of my hand that you can see here, and you don't want to forget that that your hand does actually go like that. We can get rid of this part now that we have that in there. And we can get rid of these guidelines too. And let's just redefine these knuckles a little bit. Knuckles are again another little tough thing, but as I said earlier, the way to think of it is to just look at your own hand when in doubt, honestly, guys, because then you'll really get a sense of, you know, how things are. And actually, for that one on that side, sorry, I meant this one on this side, you actually kind of lose sight of the knuckle. You can kind of put it in there, but really isn't really needed. But that's it, guys. That's my sort of drawing of a hand and taking you through the steps of how to do it. And once you keep practicing this type of thing and have your little toothless guide up there and looking at your own hand and considering how it would be drawn, honestly, it gets a lot easier. So if you like this and if you love Toothless, give it a thumbs up, guys. I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.